So we're here to talk about cold email today and how to make it work for you. The layout of this talk, I'll probably talk for only about 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, is pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about the problems with cold email today. I am coming at this from the world of B2B marketing. I know that there are some B2C folks on the call. I think that's okay. The principles that I'm going to be discussing are universally applicable, but the examples are from my world of B2B, although interestingly, literally 20 seconds before this call started, I got a really good email from Wikipedia, and I thought about including it in here. But anyway, so we'll talk about some real life examples that I have received in my inbox that will definitely make you cringe. We're going to go over how cold email actually does work, what types of personalization are useful, how to be authentic in your voice and getting rid of all of the gimmicks, and some examples, some positive examples that yield results. All of the resources that I reference in this deck today will be included at the end of the slide. So everyone does does cold email marketing. It's cheap, it's not difficult to find audiences, and it drives results much more quickly than long games like search engine optimization and other types of channels. So we love it. But in order to figure out how to win with cold email, because it is so pervasive, we have to look at what's wrong with it. And the reason for this is simple. If everyone is doing it and everyone is doing it in the same way, how do you make sure that your message is actually heard? I mean, take a look at this. Again, a little small. This is my personal inbox. The digital age and the current, albeit changing, lack of privacy make it such that there's not a marketer out there who can't figure out who I am and how to reach me. And the same is true of most of you, unless you've gone to some lengths to protect your identities. And this is the result. This is my primary inbox. This is not my promotions folder. So Google does its best to try to catch a lot of sort of spammy and cold emails, but they don't get everything. And this is what I end up with. You can see here that I have redacted the 4 actually meaningful emails that I have. And my morning routine consists of clicking my way down the list of boxes on the left-hand side and deleting all of the stuff that's come in overnight without a single glance at it. So if you're that's in the mornings, and then I get more and more and more throughout the day, and maybe 1 or 2 will catch my eye, but for the most part, I just delete them. So you're doing cold email, you have a lot of competition. You have more competition now than you've ever had before. And you have so much competition, in fact, that a lot of email has become virtually meaningless. You're playing for the 1%. For many years, the response rate of B2B cold email has averaged 1%, and it's actually getting worse. Copper recently ran a survey of marketers to see how marketing has changed during the pandemic. And one of the things that we identified is the number of cold emails that have been sent has increased substantially, while the response rate has gotten worse or stayed the same. And yet 93% of B2B companies use email. I have no doubt that that is the same of B2C. And so we continue to throw emails everyone's way, not because we think it's going to drive a fantastic response rate, but because we're okay playing for the 1%. And the way that will increase the number of responses that we get is by sending out more emails. This is not going to work for very much longer. This cannot grow ad nauseum. The noise factor has eclipsed the usefulness factor. At best, managing our inboxes is annoying and a waste of time, but at worst, it actually does the opposite of what we intended, and it damages the way that we perceive brands. There's 2 major flaws with cold email today. The first is that we try to be too clever with our personalization tactics, and personalization data is often wrong. The second is that the content of these emails is disingenuous. We use gimmicks to pretend that we have a relationship with someone, even when we don't. I want to caveat this by saying what I'm talking about today is the body of a cold email. I'm not going to talk about technologies for deliverability or subject lines or, how to integrate it with your marketing stack or anything like that. What I'm really interested in looking at is how to craft content that will actually be read and responded to. So we really have to look at the problem of personalization, and I'm going to start there. So there's an article recently in the Financial Times where a Facebook product manager was quoted as saying that more than half the time we're showing ads to someone other than the advertiser's intended audience. And this is Facebook with its troves of first-party data. Most of us who are using cold email and enhancing it with personalized data are using third-party data. If Facebook can't do it with the own body of data that they actively collect about their customers or their users, what makes us think our third-party data is going to be any better? It's not. And in fact, there was an article published in a journal called Marketing Science in 2019 that basically aggregated the top 5 data brokers and took a look at their data on gender identification. And what they discovered was the relative performance of using third-party data to identify gender is 29%, which is no better than random user selection. And this is across data brokers whom I'm sure we all pay for. The data is just not accurate. IBM published a paper that said upon receiving irrelevant or incorrect information from a brand, 47% of US consumers have ignored future communications from the company. So that's a problem as well. And Gartner has gone so far as to predict that 80% of marketers will abandon personalization efforts by 2025, partially because the data doesn't work and they have not had success with it, and partially because of the changing landscape of privacy. And on that note, iOS 15 is coming out. And when iOS 15 comes out, people who upgrade to it will be able to choose whether they want to activate mail privacy protection. And if they do, that means all of your emails that are sent to that person will be marked as open. So your open rates are going to be massively inflated and they are not going to be meaningful anymore. So, there are so many ways that personalization can go wrong. Within the context of a cold email, it could be as easy as simple as not having good first name data for your merge fields, or it could be as complex as trying to programmatically determine what someone might respond to based on some third-party data that we have on hand. I won't get into it here, but because of the changing requirements, we really are going to lose or have greatly diminished ability to leverage third-party data in the future. And this is actually okay because there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's really not working for us. So what I want to do now is transition into a few examples that I have seen that have really made me pause when I saw it and actually made me, go back to my team. We actually don't do outbound cold email at Copper, but we certainly do email nurture based on people who've started free trials with our software. And these made me cringe so badly that I went back to our team and I sort of doubled down on checking the accuracy of our data. So here's the first one. Again, I apologize for the small copy, but you guys probably have better eyes than me. And these are all real examples that have come through my inbox or one of my colleagues' inboxes. In this particular case, what I'm seeing here is an email where the sender tried to indicate that he had reached out to 2 colleagues of mine, Amit and Brooke. I changed names for the sake of privacy. And then he insinuated that I would be missing out if I didn't connect with him. But the first person he mentioned doesn't and never worked at Copper. They work for a company called Copper LLC, which has absolutely nothing to do with Copper, but you can see how that mistake would have been made. And the second is an employee who left the company in early March, and I received this email in August. So clearly there is some type of programmatic enrichment here that went very poorly, because anyone looking at LinkedIn for 2 seconds would have seen the accurate data for what it was and would not have made this mistake. So this is a great example of where this guy blew it. These people blew it with their personalization. And not only that, but I really liked Brooke Smith. She was a great colleague, and I was very sad to see her go. So I was actually kind of offended when I received this email saying that, reminding me that, I lost out on working with Brooke day to day several months ago. So this really damaged my perception of this brand. This is one of my all-time favorite fails. It makes me laugh every time I look at it. This is a cold email addressed to Dennis. And the copy indicates that the sender knows that Dennis doesn't have the decision-making power of the organization, but perhaps he could pass this on to somebody who does. So Dennis, whose last name is not Dennis, is Copper's CEO. And the sender was none other than the supposed top prospect enrichment database. I mean, this is so bad. It's an email being sent to my CEO, making an assumption based on bad data that he's an individual contributor, and it is from a prospect enrichment database service. It doesn't get much worse than this. So this is the issue. No matter how hard you try, you are going to get personalization wrong a lot. And this is one of the reasons why you're only getting a low response rate and why you will always get a low response rate. And you might be saying to yourself, so what? I don't care. I'm playing for a low response rate. It's not that big of a deal. But I have to tell you that my opinion of the prospect enrichment database was a lot higher until I received this email, until I saw this email. They damaged their own brand by trying to be too clever. And why? I mean, for what reason? And I will never work with the person who told me that he tried to reach my supposed colleagues. I mean, he lost my trust before he even established it. So you can't just think about the responses that you are getting. You have to think about the responses that you're not getting. And not all of the unanswered emails are from people who are just ignoring you or had the email sent to their promotions folder. There are people who saw your email and actually got annoyed about it and developed a negative perception of your brand. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't write you to tell you that, or they didn't unsubscribe, but it happens, and it happens a lot. So you have to be very careful when you use personalization. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. In the meantime, let's look at the second way that cold email goes wrong. 10 years ago, when cold emails all followed the exact same format, some growth marketer had a taste of success by including a photo of the office dog, and response rates shot up because, hey, who doesn't love a puppy? But that only lasted for about 5 minutes, because what happened was word spread, and then all the other marketers started doing exactly the same thing. And now we're in the situation where brands wage a constant battle with one another to come up with new ways of pretending to actually know someone, or new ways of trying some new gimmick that will hopefully catch your attention and drive a response. I mean, I'm offered chocolates, I'm offered lunch, I'm presented with photos and Giphies and other things that are supposed to make me think the email is unique, when it is very clear that it is not. And it's so fake at this point that we've all actually assimilated this into our daily lives. And we don't even blink at the fact that 75% of our inboxes are emails from people we don't know, but who are pretending to know us. I want to, and I also want to point out that if we get cold email right, and we are authentic and we are genuine, then you may not be able to measure it, but you've just achieved a good result with respect to brand awareness, because people may not have responded to your email, but some of them have taken it in and appreciated it. And so that's another reason to think about avoiding being disingenuous. So just as with the personalization data, these gimmicks can hurt you. Here's another example. I won't read it, but because it's so small, I'll just explain to you how it's laid out. This is one of those emails where they put a fake automation sequence in place to make it look like the sender has reached out to the CEO saying, hey, I think you could you help me here? I'd really like to get in touch with Carrie at Copper, and I haven't been successful. And then the supposed CEO responds and says, thanks, I'm so excited about working with this brand. Please pass my contact information along. And then I get the email where I see the results of those forwards, and I am given the CEO's contact details and some other message about driving driving more leads for me or whatever this email was about. And I mean, come on, like, who believes this anymore, right? Like, we just really, nobody looks at this and thinks that this actually happened. We're not that gullible. We're actually pretty savvy, sophisticated marketers. And also, nobody's interested in name dropping, right? Like, I'm supposed to be impressed by the fact that the CEO of some other organization wants to talk to me. Well, that doesn't work either. It just doesn't make sense. And I also guarantee you that if anybody who does decide to, quote unquote, reach out to the CEO is going to send an email to an automated inbox where it's going to be automatically forwarded back to the salesperson who's going to reach back out on behalf of the CEO. So don't do this. This is another example that is actually pretty bad because it's very duplicitous. In this case, the sender tried to trick me and others on my team. Her subject line was weekly top lead, 56K budget, specialty contractor in California. And the body of the email was designed to look just like the triggered notifications that I get from our marketing automation platform. And in fact, the sender called herself my account representative. So she implied that we already have a business relationship. And the whole email was designed to look like something that I already subscribed to and was already paying for. And so I would be duped into writing back and saying, who are you, Monica? And where's this lead? How can I find it? Because they're trying to trick me into thinking that I'm already buying these leads. And I'm not. I'm not, and I would get an equally duplicitous response from her if I did reach back out. It's sleazy. And it's just not the right way to start a relationship with someone with whom you want to do business. So this is another, yeah, exactly, Nick. Starting relationships with a lie is a very bad idea. Follow-ups are equally annoying. Sometimes the follow-up tactics can be really infuriating. What drives me crazy about these are people who pretend that they have a relationship with me because they've sent me 2 emails. And then somehow they think I owe them something. So after 2 or 3 non-responses, what they do is they actually ask a favor of me. They want me to take time out of my busy day and to tell you why I am not being responsive to their email. It's a terrible question. And I think that anybody would be hard-pressed to, I think anybody would be hard-pressed to drive meaningful responses. So, not only are we being inauthentic in what we're doing, we are making demands of people we don't know so that we can fix our data. And it just annoys the crap out of me, and I never, ever respond to these. Not to mention the fact that coming up with an email copy that says, I'm going to assume one of these 3 things, and then goes on to make 3 incorrect assumptions about me does not engender my loyalty in any way, shape, or form. All right, so those are the really bad examples. So now let's talk about how to fix this. So I am a marketer, and I have a large responsibility to drive top and mid-funnel action for my organization. So I truly understand where all of this is coming from. I truly understand why we love email as a channel and why we want to make it work. And I really, really get it. But these emails totally miss the mark. And for years, no matter how many have been sent, the average response rate has never improved. And the reason for that is very simple. Cold email only works, at least cold email that drives leads, only works when 2 very specific criteria are met. The first is you already have to be feeling the pain expressed by the sender. And the second is you have to be feeling the pain right now. Timing and pain, that's it. That's what works. And when you do get a response, it's because you caught the person at the right time when they were feeling that pain point. I want to put in one caveat here, which is you can use email marketing for brand awareness. And then your message is not going to be about pain, it's going to be about value. But that's a very different strategy. In that case, you're not trying to drive leads, you're trying to get a brand touch point out there. We all know the data that says brands need between 4 and 7 touch points before somebody starts to remember them. And so if you're using email marketing to drive brand awareness, what you want to do is then what you want to do is you want to offer value in the email that you're sending. It could be a blog post you've written, a video you have, it could be some asset that you think will be helpful to the person that you're sending it to. But the important thing is you're not expecting a response, and you're not driving your results based on the number of responses that you get. So anyway, the combination of timing and pain is what elicits a response for lead gen, and you can dispense with all the rest. You can stop trying to come up with clever copy that will amaze and delight, because it never will, and it really doesn't matter. All you have to do is identify the pain point that you're solving and hope that you get the timing right. Here's a good example. So this is an email from somebody who is a third-party demand gen partner. And while I could quibble with the excessive exclamation marks and the fact that the brand that they mentioned as their case study, which I've redacted in the email, it wasn't one that I was familiar with, nor was it relevant to me. But this person caught me at a time when I was absolutely feeling the pain of slow pipeline. This email came out during the pandemic. Everything was really hard. I had already been considering working with third-party demand gen partners. And so this was a very well-timed email with a very authentic and clear message. And not only that, but he also offered me a case study if I wanted to read a little bit more about this other customer that he's helped. So ultimately, I did connect with this person, and I became a very legitimate, very qualified lead. Really like this email, use the example often. This is another one that caught my attention. I don't know if you can see the data, but in this case, I am going to mention the brand, and it was SourceForge. And in this case, they did use data, but they weren't trying to be clever with personalization. They used their own first-party data, and they used publicly available data about traffic to their competitors like G2 and Capterra. And basically, the body of the email was telling me about how many more visitors they have than Capterra and G2, both of which I'm already a customer of. And so that was another authentic way to grab my attention. That's a lot more traffic. Now, if I sort of went down the path and thought about it a little bit more, I would be like, that's a little too much traffic. You know, I suspect there's a lot of B2C traffic here, which isn't really relevant to me. But at the same time, I appreciated the email. Again, very straightforward, well-written, and not gimmicky in the least. And then I've got one more example here where this person stands out not because he's trying to be clever with personalization, but because he leverages his own previous experience with my brand in his new job. And I'm totally fine with this. So this is a more authentic connection with me than the vast majority of brands who try to reach out, right? I don't know anything about his new gig or his new company. I don't know him personally, but I know he worked at The Hustle, and I know that Copper was formerly a customer of The Hustle, and now he works somewhere else, and he's doing something similar that is probably reasonably meaningful to me. So this was a situation where it was not automated. It was personalized data that was sort of less automated than a lot of other stuff that comes in. But there was an actual connection that he could leverage with me. And so that was good. And you'll notice the common thread among all of these, right? No gimmicks, no puppies, no frisbees, no free lunch coupons, no demands of my time to help them to become better marketers. Just two things, timing and pain. And this brings me to another point is, learning to write. You don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to be like an advertising copywriter who's trying to come up with a really, really sort of jingly way to say something. You have to craft grammatically correct sentences that accurately express pain in about 3 ways. And the reason you need to do it in 3 ways is because you're going to set up a sequence, because you have to address timing through a sequence. And so you want to have some variety in your writing so that you can express your pain point a little bit differently each time. And you have to be polite, professional, and not annoying. I'm not going to go into the details of how to write well because there's so many really good free resources on the web, but we do have a blog post on this, and I have it on the last slide, and it is a collection of resources that you can leverage. I'm not going to give you a template because I don't think everybody should be doing the exact same thing, but I could give you an outline. And the outline is really simple. It's, hey, here's the pain point we solve. If this is a pain you're feeling, our company can help. Would you like to set up some time to talk? And that's for the specific lens of B2B cold marketing emails that are designed to drive leads. That will work over and over again if you get the timing and the pain right. So in summary, avoid excessive personalization. And if you don't trust your data, avoid it altogether. You don't need that much data. I definitely think that having good first name data is important. I do think people like to be referred to by their first names in email. So if you invest in one thing, it should be to get that information right. And then beyond that, I can't emphasize enough that you just have to be really careful, and you have to test the data that you do have and ensure that it's correct. The way that we go about testing at Copper is not, it is not excessively fancy. I mean, basically, we will take a field from the data enrichment service that we use, and then we will compare it with customer reported data, and we'll see how often it's accurate. So every time we decide that we want to use a field from our enrichment service, we will try to find one way to validate its accuracy levels before we move forward. And then you can make smarter decisions about it. If you have something that's 85% accuracy, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think it's more likely with third-party services that you're going to find things in the 50s, 60, 70% ranges. And so you may not want to put all of your eggs into that basket. You may not want to drive really big, really important decisions off of a piece of data that only gives you 50% accuracy. So that's a problem for the business. Avoid all the gimmicks. They don't work anymore. We see through them. We know them. We see through them. There's nothing we haven't seen. They waste everyone's time. And the worst part is they are disingenuous. The sender doesn't know me, and the sender should not pretend that he or she knows me. They should not pretend that we have a relationship. They should not be asking me for favors. The relationship will come if you can prove to me that you can solve a pain that I have. And once you connect, then we can start the work of building an actual real relationship. Do identify pain and do accept timing for what it is. You'll catch some people at the right time and others at the wrong time. An email sequence is okay if it's not too frequent, because what a sequence does, the reason we do sequences is to try to get the timing right. So don't space out your sequences day to day, right? Because if I'm not feeling the pain today, chances are pretty slim that I'm going to be feeling it tomorrow. Make the gap a little bit wider, and then you'll actually have much more of an opportunity to get a response that way. And then the other thing is, after a series of about 3 emails, if you still haven't received a response, it's either safe to scrub that person from your list altogether, or to move them to another list that's designed only for brand awareness, where you send emails out a lot less frequently, or to, at the very least, put them into some kind of recycling program where you won't email them again for, let's say, another 90 days. I cannot tell you how many of these folks email me over and over and over and over again until I unsubscribe. And they don't stop, and the emails come day after day, week after week. And, I don't have the time to clean my inbox up like that. Like, I just don't. So I don't do anything about it. I don't unsubscribe. I just delete the emails in the mornings when I delete all of my cold emails. But that's not to say that they're doing a good job. Just because I haven't unsubscribed doesn't mean they're doing a good job. Finally, do offer data when it supports the pain point that you solve. Compelling data does work, and it doesn't have to be ultra personalized to work, like the example from SourceForge. Clearly express the pain, use a cadence for timing, write well, and above all, be authentic. And so here are the resources that are available. So you'll be able to see these on the recording, and also you'll have links in the decks. And hopefully some of these will be of assistance to you. And that is all I have for today.
Hey, Carrie. Do we have a couple minutes left we have a couple questions in the chat, I think that
Sure.
would be valuable. One is, would you recommend looking through social media accounts of the prospects and using that as personalized conversation starters?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Is it? Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're asking me, would I do this in an automated fashion to send out an email to a large list? The answer is no, I wouldn't. Again, you would get it wrong.
Yeah.
Even in social, you would get it wrong. You know, everybody loves to tell the story about when Target sent diapers to a teenage girl whose father didn't know she was pregnant. I mean, you're going to start to make mistakes like that right away if you do it in an automated fashion. If it's a specific one-off and you're actually actively researching someone and reading about what they're talking about on social, then by all means, hey, I see we share a love of dog shows, right? Like that's fine, but I would not automate that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like I like that formula that you gave. It's like the point we solve. Are you experiencing that pain point? And if you are, here's the contact info. It's like especially when you're going really broad.
That's the thing is that is what always does work, right? It's not the fact that you offered me chocolates in return for my time, or that you gave me a picture of your office dog, which is very cute. But it's not that. It's that I am feeling the pain that you solve. That's what does it.
Yeah. So we have a couple more here. Do you have any advice to maximize your chances your outbound emails won't get auto-classified by Gmail in the promotions tab? So basically, is there any way for them to basically make sure their emails actually end up in the regular inbox?
I don't believe that there is any reliable way to do that anymore. However, what I will say is that the promotions folder is not a terrible place to be. So spam you can avoid, right? You can avoid getting into a spam folder. You have quality ratings through your email provider, like your MailChimp or what have you. If you have a strong rating and a strong user base with good data in it, and you are a whitelisted sender, you will not fall into spam. You can't avoid being in the promotions folder.